Okay, so get this. We're diving deep into robot
In
mechanics.
space.
Yeah, in space.
Sounds like a sci-fi movie.
I know, right? But this is actually happening. It's based on this DARPA project called RSGS.
Robotic servicing of geosynchronous satellites.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're not just like launching things up and forgetting about them anymore.
Right. It's like we're taking care of our stuff up there instead of it turning into space junk.
Exactly. Like think about if your phone broke and you couldn't fix it.
You'd have to get a new one every time.
Yeah, every time, which is what we've been doing with satellites, basically.
So this RSGS is, what is it exactly?
So it's basically a robotic payload.
Like a toolkit for space.
Yeah, kind of. It's a suite of tools designed to do all kinds of things to satellites.
Like what kind of things?
Well, they can do these like close-up inspections, like a checkup,
Okay.
and then even like orbital adjustment.
Like moving them around?
Yeah, keeping them where they need to be, and then even like repairs and upgrades.
Wait, so they can actually go in and like swap out parts?
Yeah, they can. It's pretty incredible.
That's wild. So who's building this thing?
So it's actually a collaboration. The U.S. Naval Research Laboratory developed the payload itself,
Okay.
and then Northrop Grumman is building the spacecraft to carry it.
Wow, that's a lot of brain power going into this thing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a pretty big deal. But, the big question is, why are we doing all of this?
Well, I'm guessing it's probably cheaper to fix a satellite than launch a whole new one, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, think about it. It's like fixing your car versus buying a new one every time you get a flat tire.
That's a good analogy.
But it's not just about the money. We can upgrade these satellites with new technology.
So we're not stuck with like 10-year-old tech up there.
Right. We can keep them relevant and up to date.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, this quote from the article really stood out to me. It's from a scientist at NRL. He said, "Satellites are the only expensive equipment we buy that can't be repaired or upgraded once they are in the field, and this costs the taxpayer money."
It's true. Why should we just throw away these expensive things when we can fix them?
It's like with anything else we own. We try to fix it before we replace it.
Exactly. And now we can do that with satellites, too.
So they've been testing this thing out, right?
Yeah, they just finished this thermal vacuum test.
What's that?
Well, they basically simulate the conditions of space, like the extreme temperatures and the vacuum.
Oh, wow.
And it passed, which means it's one step closer to launching.
When's that supposed to happen?
They're aiming for 2026.
Okay, so this is really happening. It's not just an idea anymore.
Yeah, it's getting real. And, it's similar to what's happening in other fields, too, like surgery or manufacturing.
Robots are getting really good at those things.
Yeah, and now we're taking that technology and putting it into space.
It's kind of mind-blowing to think about, going from just launching stuff up there to actually building and maintaining things.
Yeah, it's a whole new way of thinking about space.
So where do we go from here? What's the next step in all of this?
Yeah, it really is a paradigm shift,
Like a whole new way of thinking about things.
Exactly. But of course there are challenges.
Like what? What kind of challenges are we talking about?
Well, for one thing, these robots have to be incredibly autonomous.
Meaning they can't just be controlled from Earth.
Right, because there's a delay in communication,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So they have to be able to think for themselves, basically.
Make decisions on their own.
Exactly. And that's tough. We're still figuring out AI here on Earth.
Let alone in space with all its hazards.
Right. So there are all these questions about safety and reliability,
And ethical concerns, too, I imagine.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, we're giving these machines a lot of power.
And responsibility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the robots themselves.
What else is there?
Well, the article talks about building large structures in space.
Like what kind of structures?
Things like telescopes or even solar power stations.
Wow.
And if we can do that, then who owns those things? Who controls them?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And who benefits from them?
It's like a whole new frontier with a whole new set of rules.
Exactly. And the stakes are high. If we're talking about something like space-based solar power.
That could change everything.
It could. But it also raises questions about energy distribution and environmental impact and even potential conflicts.
It's a lot to consider.
It is. It's both exciting and a little bit scary.
Yeah, I get that. It's
Right,
like we're on the verge of something huge.
And we need to be prepared for it.
So what happens next? What are the next steps to make this all happen?
Well, the RSGS is supposed to launch in 2026.
Right.
And if that's successful, it could open the door to even more ambitious projects.
Do you think so?
Oh, yeah. I think we'll see more advanced robots, more sophisticated AI,
And more complex missions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it won't just be government agencies doing this stuff.
You're talking about private companies.
Yeah, companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin.
They're already doing amazing things.
They are. And they're pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
So it's like a new space race is starting.
Maybe. But this time it's not just about national pride, you know?
It's about commercial interests and scientific discovery.
Right. And maybe even expanding humanity beyond Earth.
It's an incredible time to be alive.
It really is. We're at a turning point in our relationship with space.
And robots are leading the way.
It's fascinating to think about, this one project, the RSGS.
It could change everything.
It could. But it also raises questions about what it means to be human,
And our place in the universe.
And the choices we make as we venture further out there.
It's a lot to think about.
It is.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on all of this?
We've been talking about this whole idea of robot mechanics up in space and focusing on DARPA's RSGS project.
It's pretty wild, right? Robots actually fixing things and maybe even building stuff way up there.
And we've talked about the challenges, the tech side of things, the ethical stuff. But I keep thinking back to that paradigm shift you mentioned.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean for us down here on Earth?
Well, I think it means we're seeing space differently now. For a long time, it was this distant place,
Unreachable.
Yeah, exactly. But now, with robots and AI, we're closing the gap.
So instead of just looking up at the stars, we're actually going up there and doing things.
Yeah, and that comes with responsibilities,
We can't just mess things up because we can reach them now.
Right. We got to think about what we're doing up there and how it affects everything.
We're not just exploring anymore. We're starting to make space part of our world.
And that changes things. It's not just about the technology. It's about making the right choices.
The decisions we make now will shape what happens in space, and that will definitely affect Earth, too.
Think about that space-based solar power idea.
Oh, yeah, that was a big one.
If we can actually harness all that energy, it could solve a lot of problems down here.
But then there are the questions.
Yeah.
Who controls that energy? How do we make sure everyone benefits?
Exactly. Those are the things we need to figure out.
It seems like every cool idea comes with a whole bunch of new things to worry about.
It's true. But I think the key is to talk about it,
Like a global conversation about space.
Yeah, we need to figure this out together. Not just scientists and engineers, but everyone.
It's like we're writing a new chapter in the human story, and everyone needs to be part of it.
That's a great way to put it. We're not just along for the ride anymore. We're shaping what happens next.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness.
Yeah, I get that.
It's like we're at a crossroads with all these amazing possibilities, but also a lot of responsibility.
It's a time for big dreams, but also careful thinking. We got to move forward, but also be aware of what we're doing.
The future of space is unfolding, and it's up to us to make it a good one.
That's a great takeaway, I think.
Right.
Thanks for having me on to talk about this. It's been fascinating.
Yeah, it really has. And thanks to everyone listening out there. Robot mechanics in space, it's a wild concept,
It is.
but it's the future, and it's closer than we think. Keep looking up and keep asking questions. Until next time.